And it's over. Round 1 is done, and we're going on to round 2. I went 6 for 8 in round 1, which isn't that bad. A few teams surprised me, but anyways, let's do a quick wrap-up of the first round before we move on to the second round. Gotta make this pretty quick. I just got back from work, and there's another hockey game on coming, which I'd like to get something before then. Quick question before we start any of this. How many of you have a sun in your room? Brings the mood. First of all, Washington beats my beloved Rangers, which I was hoping for, but in the end they didn't come out. It was a different Washington than expected, and like with many in the playoffs, you can't judge it based off of what happened in regular season. Basically, the tale of this tape is Washington comes out, and offense, and Rangers get maybe 3 good scoring chances throughout the game, and the fact that they couldn't capitalize on them means that they're out of the playoffs. Washington moving on. Philly and Buffalo, 7 games, very hard fought. Philly comes out on top. You can see goaltending was obviously an issue with Philly, which as I thought, but the strong guns kept to it, and Boston couldn't pull it out. Montreal and Boston, a very exciting back and forth series. You never could really tell what team was going to show up. Very hard, but in the end I got it right. Boston 7 games, and they deserved it. And finally, Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh, another good series. Didn't watch this one as much, but Tampa Bay comes out victorious. West, Vancouver takes it in 7, which was surprising. This was the big surprise for me. I thought they were going to sweep them, but and they looked to be well en route. But David Bolin comes back, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, there's the 7th game overtime, which he scores shorthanded. I have to say that was probably one of the best games I've ever seen. But in the end, Vancouver won it. If you look at the first 3 games, you'd say, yes, they deserve it. If you look at the games 4 through 6, you say, oh, Chicago deserves it. But either way, Vancouver's moving on. San Jose also defeats LA Kings as expected. Detroit sweeps Phoenix, which no surprise there. It's Detroit. They're experienced, and they're almost guaranteed to go to the Cup final almost every year. And Nashville beats Anaheim, which I had a lot of people disagree with me on that. I watched them play. They're a very defensive team. Didn't give up that many chances, and when they did, Pecorino was right there to stop them. They didn't get. They're obviously not known as much for their offensive ability, but when they did get offense, they capitalized on it. That's why they came up with a victory. And just watching it, that was a very exciting series. I watched that one a lot, as I did in many of them. But when they won, that was one of my favorite reactions. Just a feel-good story right there. The smile on Pecorino's face. It was great. But anyways, they move on. And that was the end of all she wrote for round 1. The criticism I have actually about the first round is the fact that Boston and Philly won. Now, it's not for the reason you think it is. It's because by them winning, they advance further in the playoffs, which means that their first round pick, which they traded to the Leafs, unfortunately become worse. It kind of sucks, but hey, we deal with it. Now, of the 49 games that were played in the first round, I believe I watched at least 43 of them. Like, I watched a lot. They were really good. But anyways, on to round 2, where we have our first matchup is Vancouver and Nashville. Now, I'm not going to bore you with the typical, this is how they did in the playoff series and everything, because it's playoffs, and that's completely out the door. We've seen what the new teams are like now, so we got to judge them based off that. And given that, teams can change on the fly, as you saw in Game 4 with Vancouver and Chicago, and now it's a whole nother team, so we'll see what happens. But keep that in mind. First seed against the 5th seed. I love Vancouver, and I also love Nashville. Actually, Nashville is the team I want to win it now. Just they're the complete underdogs. They never made it this far, and I've always kind of liked them. So rooting for Nashville. However, my instinct and my little bit of knowledge that I know about hockey tells me flat out that Vancouver's going to win. And Daniel Sedin's, they slow down a little bit at the end. However, they still are obviously forced to be reckoned with Kessler coming up and Burrows still stepping it up. And you got Luongo back there, who seems to have found his game in Game 7. It's going to be a hard team to beat. I give this one to Vancouver in 6. Next matchup is San Jose versus Detroit. 2nd versus 3rd seed. This is another close matchup. However, I believe Detroit's skill and experience in the playoffs will come full throttle, and I think that'll end up being the difference maker. Goaltending, I don't think will be a big thing in this. I expect a shootout. I think this is actually a really good series to watch. Give this one to Detroit in 6. Which brings us to the East, which is Washington versus Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has been always an offensive threat with St. Louis, LeCavalier, and St. Louis, especially with St. Louis stepping it up. And Stamkos seem to have found it lately in the playoffs, kind of getting used to the early playoff jitters. But with the fact that Rolison's really stepped up, we'll make this a lot better series. However, I still feel that Ovechkin, Semin, and Backstrom's offensive threat, the fact that Semin seems to not be having the slump that he had last year, and it looks like Washington has shook off those playoff choking jitters. So Michael Neuwirth, who, although isn't the greatest goalie, he's also stepped it up and surprised me a little, actually. He's been playing a lot of really solid hockey, and I like the way he's been playing. So we got a good goaltender against Rolison, who are 41-year-olds playing absolutely outstanding. 2 highly offensive teams. Something's got to give. I don't know what it is going to be yet. However, I believe that Washington will take this one in 5 games. Which brings us to our last round, which is between Philadelphia and Boston. Both having a hard-fought 7-game series, back and forth, back and forth. Real difference maker in my mind is the outstanding play by Claude Giroux as per last playoffs, where he continued throughout the entire season. And James Van Riemsdyk, with the comeback of Pronger on defense, that'll be a much-needed reinforcement for Philly, which could end up being Boston Bruins' Achilles heel. Boston has some overtime heroics with Nathan Horton, some great play out of their typical players. However, they're going to need Milan Lucic to step up, and they're going to need Tim Thomas to stand on his head. Tim Thomas is playing good hockey. However, he needs to play great if they want to have a chance to win over Philly. However, I think with the help of Pronger on defense and Philly's solid offense that they seem to have had all year, I give this one to Philly in 7. A hard-fought battle. So that brings us to the end of this one. Let's see how you're doing. How are you doing your pools? Start some conversations. Tell me your thoughts. You agree, disagree with me, chirp me, whatever you want. One thing's for sure, we know that the second round's gonna be just as good as the first. I'm gonna be watching most of it. Anyways, easy guys.